Hello and welcome to this video. In this video we're going to tackle the bank and try and figure out why sometimes it just won't balance.
Told him I can be a fighter if you want. I'll be there to catch you if you fall. I can make it brighter when it starts. I told him I would do it all for you, and I know you do it for me too.
Hello, my name's Aaron Patrick. I'm a chartered accountant, certified UK trainer, and also a QuickBooks Ask the Expert. Today we're going to tackle one of those problems that comes up time and time again, and that's with your bank not actually coming through and balancing as it should do. There's nothing worse than when you go to your QuickBooks screen and you realise that your bank is out compared to what's in QuickBooks. And today we're going to have a look at exactly why that could happen and figure out how to fix that problem as well. So if you've ever had any problems with your bank, this is the video for you. Let's have a look. Okay, straight from the off. As soon as you log into QuickBooks and on that dashboard, it's going to tell you exactly how you're doing on your bank department. So as I scroll down here, you'll notice on the right hand side where it says bank account, it's going to tell me straight away if I've got an issue or not. In this particular one, it's telling me that my NatWest has £920.48 in the bank and £920.48 in QuickBooks. So I'm happy with that one. That's a good thing for me. This bank account here though, there's a difference there. And that's the sort of thing that we're looking at today. It's when your bank balance and your in QuickBooks balance don't match. So let's consider what could happen here and also how you can make sure that it's absolutely spot on. So it's all going to live within the banking section. If I jump to the banking section, you're going to be given a lot more information here. Along the top there is what we call your bank card. Now the bank card is going to give you a lot of information. Let's look at one of these bank cards in isolation. First of all, on here it's going to tell us quite a lot of information. The fact that it's now blue means that that's the one that we're highlighting and that's the one we're working with. The name at the top tells you what you've called this bank. So in this way, in this particular one, I made it nice and easy on myself and I've called it NatWest. Then I have my live bank balance figure. That's going to tell me how much money is in my bank at this point in time. The next one below that is how much is in QuickBooks at this point in time. And again, if these two figures are correct and they're the same, that's a really good indication that I've done everything correct. You get told how long ago it was since you last updated it. And you get two little icons here if you want to make any changes, maybe change the bank account or change the name or whatever it is you want to do. But the most important bit here is where I've got a nice big green tick. That green tick indicates I've completed everything within that bank account and I've moved everything into the right area. If I look at one of my other bank accounts, Revolut, this one's now not blue and it's grey, meaning that's not the one I'm working with at this point in time. It's telling me it was only updated on the 24th of the 7th, so that was yesterday at the time of this recording. So it's not had today's update that's come through. And the bank balance and in QuickBooks balance is different, and that's a bit of an issue for me. So that's where I've got to concentrate on to try and find out. On my PayPal account, my bank balance is £0, but my in QuickBooks balance is £7.11. So there's something not quite right there. So either my bank balance isn't updating correctly, or what's probably more likely is I've still got some transactions to deal with. And in this case, you can see that because I have 11 transactions still in my for reviewed. Therefore, I've got to make sure that that's correct. And then my final bank balance over here is a bank balance that doesn't get connected automatically. So for whatever reason, this account I can't physically connect, and I have to upload the transactions on a manual basis. If that's the case and you're having to upload these transactions manually, then you definitely need to follow this advice on this video, because we need to make sure that we do a reconciliation at the end of the process to make sure we're exactly spot on when it could be. And also to note on this business bank 4, which means I've still got 4 transactions that I need to put from for review to reviewed. Now that number 4 there is really important, and that's one of the issues where people make the first mistake. They think that as soon as the information starts coming into QuickBooks and starts getting processed, that that's it, that that's all they need to do. But in fact, it's more complicated than that. Each bank account is split into 3 areas: for review, reviewed, and excluded. And the number up here, all done here, but 11 here. So if I jump into my PayPal account and I come down, you'll notice I now have 11 transactions sat here. Now those 11 transactions are pretty crucial to the way I'm going to be doing things. So those 11 transactions are sat in my for review section. The most important thing to remember that if you have transactions in the for review section, they're not currently in QuickBooks. Your job is to make sure they're moved from for review to one of the other areas. When you move the transactions, you're going to be moving them from either for review to reviewed or for review to excluded. When you move them from for review to excluded, you're saying you don't want them in QuickBooks, but when you move them from for review to reviewed, you're saying you want them in QuickBooks. And when I say you want them in QuickBooks, it means that you want them to come into your VAT returns, or maybe you want them into reports, or you basically want to deal with those transactions so you can utilize them in some way or another. Also, when you move them from for review to reviewed, you'll see in one of the other videos I do, there's only two things to worry about there. You're either going to match a transaction with something that's already in QuickBooks, or you're going to add the transaction directly from here. For more information on that one, do jump onto one of my previous videos when I do a proper deep dive into the bank account. Okay, so the issue that we've got here then is we want to figure out why we've got problems. What is the reason why we're not getting all our bank account and our in QuickBooks account to be the same? One of the first things to look out for is error messages. Now, error messages pop up from time to time. You'll see here in this one, we were unable to get transactions from QuickBooks, and it's going to tell me what I need to do about it. So if you ever see a little error message there, if there's ever an exclamation mark or anything like that, always deal with that first. That's telling you the data isn't coming into QuickBooks as it should do. And that's a real big problem. We want that data to be in there. If there's a gap of, let's say, a week or 4 days or a day, then you're gonna have a difference between what your balance is in QuickBooks to what the balance on your bank account is gonna be because of missing data. So always, always, always keep an eye out for those differences and keep an eye out and look at the ways in which you can fix those problems. One of the nice things about QuickBooks is most of the time it's going to be able to tell you straight away. So the first thing is clear any error messages. Next, we need to make sure we don't have any issues here. So we need to make sure that our last remaining transactions are cleared. As an example, if I was to clear all these transactions and I was going to say that these are all posted. Now, if by magic, as soon as I put all my transactions into QuickBooks and I've got that nice big green tick, I now have a 0 here and a 0 there, meaning that all that was missing was the fact that I hadn't processed all my transactions. Okay, scenario number 2 then. Scenario number 2 is when you've processed all your transactions, but there's still something missing. Now, in this case, one of the ways to find that problem and look for that issue is to look in the bank account in a different way. You'll notice on the main bank account screen, you've got the Go to Account History down the bottom here. If I click on Go to Account History, this gives me my bank account details, but in a different way. And the reason that this is important for me is because now I can see some different elements to it. So for example, it's telling me my payment out and my deposit. So it's showing me in a more traditional bank account manner. So if I did have my statement, I could quickly go through and maybe find the difference or check a transaction against the actual bank statement itself. Here though, is one of the really important bits, and it's this little green blob here and this little C. The C means that we're happy it's tentatively reconciled, and we'll come on to reconciliation in a moment, but we're pretty much certain it's going to be there. The green blob though means it's come from a trusted source, and it's that trusted source bit that we're really going to look at now, because that trusted source basically means that it's come from one of the bank connections that's come through. And if it's come from a bank connection, we're pretty certain that that transaction is not going to be incorrect. If you think back to more traditional bookkeeping solutions, one of the reasons your bank balance in your bookkeeping compared to your bank balance in your bank is different is because you may have made a transactional error. Maybe you've put the wrong figure in, maybe you put the wrong date in, maybe you put the wrong amount in, whatever it's going to be. Sometimes that's the issue why you have a difference in your bank account. Here though, if we've got this green blob, we can be really confident that that's not the problem. And then it comes down to, well, have we missed transactions out? So have we missed one of those error messages? Or is there a transaction in QuickBooks in this particular bank account that shouldn't be there? And as I scroll through here, that can become more apparent. Put an eye on this column, and I'm looking to see if there's anything there that doesn't look the same. And as you'll notice as I get down here, that I'm starting to spot something that doesn't have the C to say it's not tentatively reconciled, and also doesn't have a green blob to say it's not come from a trusted source. So in my mind then, I'm thinking, oh, okay, that could be the issue. I also have a filtering system up here where I could have put this into that order and I would have found this transaction straight away. To deal with the transaction though, first of all, I need to figure out what it was for. So I click into it, I press edit, and it brings that transaction up for me. And in this transaction, I can see that by the looks of it, I've made a mistake somewhere along the lines, and this should never have gone to Revolut. So all I'm going to do is put it to the account that it's actually supposed to have gone to, save and close. If I return back to my banking, I'm really happy now because those two figures are correct. And that shows you where those sort of issues can find. Okay, so our final one, and the thing you should do with everything regarding the bank account, is take it the next step and reconcile in the bank. So in this one, I don't have a bank balance to work against because I've uploaded these transactions manually. So my first thing is I've got to make sure I'm happy to post these transactions. That's stage one. I've got my nice big green tick, so I've got all my transactions in there, and I've got this figure here telling me what my figure should be in QuickBooks. But as I don't have a bank account connected here, how do I know that this and this is correct? But also, how do I know that all of these figures are correct properly? What's my way of knowing that I've definitely gone through and made sure I've got all my bank account figures correct to the bank? That's where the most important thing that you need to consider is actually getting a bank statement out. A bank statement is going to tell you exactly if you've got it right or not. So you've got your bank statement. You look at your bank statement and you compare that bank statement figure to what's on QuickBooks. But it doesn't just end there. You want to be telling QuickBooks that that's the figure that you've got. So how do I reconcile my bank account? And when I say reconcile, what you're saying is that you want QuickBooks and the bank to be exactly the same. Within QuickBooks, there's various ways to get to reconciliation. You'll notice that on the main account page, I can go to account history where we just were, and in the top right-hand corner, there's a reconcile button. You'll notice there's reconciliation buttons throughout a lot of QuickBooks, and they'll all take you to the same place. So let's have a look at what happens when I click reconcile. What it does is it takes me to the reconcile an account page. Now, it's going to prompt me to grab my bank statement, which we've got here, and then it's going to say that I now need to make sure that my bank statement and my account is the same. So to do that, what I would do is find my business bank account, but notice when you drop down the arrow, you can find any different account. And I urge you to try and reconcile every single account that you have on QuickBooks. Credit card accounts, PayPal accounts, bank accounts. Even you can start looking at reconciling other different accounts, like your cash accounts as well. For your cash account, it's quite straightforward. You go to your petty cash system, you count it up, and whatever figures in that petty cash tin at that point in time is what it should be on QuickBooks. And you should be able to reconcile one to the other. Okay, so in this one, I'm going to go and reconcile against my business bank. My end balance and my beginning balance, well, the beginning balance comes from the last time I reconciled, and the end balance is basically the balance that's on my bank statement. So when I come and do this next time, my ending balance will go to my beginning balance and vice versa. So in this case, my ending balance is 613.52. And my ending, I'm going to put today's date, T for today. What you would normally do is you'd pick what's on your bank statement, so the date you're going towards. Once I'm happy with that, I press start reconciliation. And when you start reconciliation, it's going to appear with this page. On the top left-hand corner is your statement ending balance that you've gone to. Here's your beginning balance, so that's the last reconciliation period you did. Next time we do this one, we expect to see this figure as our beginning balance. Over here are all the transactions that we're about to put into QuickBooks. And our most important figure is over here. We want this figure to be 0. When your reconciliation balance is 0, that means that all the transactions are in QuickBooks. You'll also notice in the top right hand corner, it's not giving me the option to finish and move on. That's because this has currently got a different. Now below here are a load of transactions, and you'll notice that on this particular account, some of the transactions have got a green blob, some of the transactions got a green with a plus blob in. Both of these transactions, the green and the green plus, are both transactions that QuickBooks recognizes as a transaction that it thinks should be there, and it trusts those transactions. They're transactions you've either uploaded from a bank statement, or they're transactions you've connected a bank account up and they've brought those transactions through. Furthermore, if they've got a big green dot against them, or a plus should I say, that plus indicates that they've automatically been added. Remember when we looked at rules and we looked at how you can add the two transactions together? Well, that's what's happening here, is add in those transactions and put them in for us. If the transaction's got a green blob against it, then they're automatically ticked. And the tick transactions are basically transactions that appear on your bank statement. Well, if QuickBooks has automatically brought those transactions in for us, we're safe to assume that they will appear on our bank statement. And QuickBooks trusts them, so QuickBooks can put that tick on them. What you need to do now is go through and see if there's anything that's not ticked, then you need to go through and put them on. So as I go here, I go through my bank statement and I tick the transaction as it appears. You'll notice every time I tick a transaction, this difference figure is going to move because we've now got more transactions that have been cleared and our figure is going to start moving. So as I go through here and tick these transactions off, Okay, I've gone through ticking my transactions and I'm down to my last one now. So, brilliant, 30th of the 6th, 2020. I've got a amount here of £1,151.4p as an expense. As I'm paying my employee. Let's just make sure that's there. And there it is, that's that final one. And then you get a nice big green tick over here to signify you've put everything through QuickBooks. Now, sometimes you're going to go through and you're going to find transactions that you can't tick. They're going to be one of two things. The first scenario is that it's a transaction that shouldn't be there. If a transaction shouldn't be in QuickBooks, from this page, you can click into the transaction itself. It'll open up the transaction and then you can actually edit, delete it, or do whatever you need to do from it from there. The other scenario though, is sometimes you're going to have a transaction that you've put on QuickBooks because you know it's happened, but it hasn't yet cleared through the bank account. A great example of this is going to be if you still pay with stuff by check. If you pay with a transaction by check, what I would recommend is as soon as you've paid that transaction, so you've paid a supplier or an employee, whatever it's going to be, as soon as you've paid that transaction, I would put that into QuickBooks so that I know that it's been paid and I don't pay it again by accident. But obviously with a check, it can take a little bit of time for that transaction to appear in your bank account because the person that you've sent it to, they've got to walk down to their bank account, they've got to pay it in, and then the bank account's got to process it. So you may get to a position here where you've got a transaction that you can't tick because it hasn't appeared in the bank account yet. And that's perfectly acceptable. Those transactions we call uncleared transactions, and all you do is you just make sure they don't have a tick against them and you leave them. If you don't put a tick against them, what will happen is on the next reconciliation they will appear at the very top, and as soon as that comes through the bank account you can then tick that transaction and it will then clear as it should do. In my case though, I need every one of my transactions ticked and I then need to press the finish now button. As soon as I press finish now, this is what happens. You'll get a great big green tick. Doesn't that feel satisfying? That green tick tells you that you've got your bank account absolutely spot on. I'm then going to press done. And what it's done now is put a line in the sand. If I was to amend any of those transactions I've just reconciled, it's first of all going to tell me off. Then it's going to put it on a report telling me there's issues and there's differences. Also notice my beginning balance is now what I've just finished with. And I also have the opportunity to look at my last statement date here if I've got a problem. But let's see what happens if I do delete a transaction. So if I jump into my bank register and for whatever reason I decided this transaction here shouldn't be there, and for whatever reason I delete the transaction, first of all it's going to tell me off. It says, well, you've already reconciled this transaction, so why would you want to do that? So I press yes. But now if I go to my reconciliation page, now I know I'm £1,000 out. First of all, it's going to tell me, so at the very top here it says you've got a beginning balance out by 1,100, and also it's going to say there's an error down here. Finally, if I went to my history of account and I looked at the last reconciliation transaction I did and I viewed the report, it's now going to tell me that since we've had our reconciliation, we've now had a change, and it's going to tell me what I did to create that change. This is now going to be the best way for me to understand exactly what's going on in QuickBooks. Final bit of tip as well, if it's a transaction that QuickBooks trusts and it had that green blob against it, then actually QuickBooks is going to make sure that you've done it correctly. And what it does is it brings that transaction back to the For Review tab, ready for you to deal with it. Because QuickBooks is confused. You reconciled the transaction, you posted the transaction, and then it got deleted. So it's giving you one more chance to put that transaction into QuickBooks itself. And there you have it, a real look at how QuickBooks and the banking works. More importantly than anything though, key takeaways. Always make sure your bank is connected. Any error messages, sort them out straight away. Always make sure that you've got the opportunity to see what transactions have come through. So keep an eye on that review tab. And if you do have any transactions that need reviewing, just review them. And when you have reviewed them, make sure that your bank account figure and your in QuickBooks figure is the same. And then please, please, please look at reconciling those bank accounts on a regular basis. Personally, we make sure they're done once every month. Nice clean way. Normally you'll get a bank statement sent to you on a month by month basis, either by email or by post. When that bank account turns up and that bank statement turns up, that's your perfect opportunity to reconcile against it. Hopefully that helps. Getting your bank account right is crucial. There's an element within accounting that basically for us as accountants, if our bank account's correct and our cash account correct and what we call our balance sheet items are correct, then our accounts have to be right. At that point, it's just about presentation in terms of what we're doing with them. So it's really important that we get our balance sheet items, and the most important balance sheet item is your bank account, and we want to make sure it's spot on. If you're filing a VAT return, if you're looking to do a set of accounts, if you're passing some information to your accountant, the most important thing for you is knowing that that bank account is correct. So do yourself a favour, keep an eye on those error messages, keep an eye on everything that's going through, and make sure your bank account is always reconciled. If you're having any problems with this, don't forget to put some comments in below, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel for more hints and tips like this. And also, if you're still struggling on QuickBooks, go over to the Boffets guys. We've just launched a brand new training platform, which includes QuickBooks Basics. That's 2.5 hours of training dedicated directly to you on an almost one-to-one basis virtually, giving you the opportunity to ask any questions you are directly to us. We make sure you leave there knowing exactly how to do the basics in QuickBooks. I do hope this has helped. I do hope you find a way to fix your bank account issues, and then that way you can make sure you're getting the most out of QuickBooks. My name's been Aaron. It's been a pleasure doing this video for you, and I will see you on the next video. Bye for now.
I say yeah. I told him I can be a fighter if you want. I'll be there to catch you if you fall. I can make it brighter when it starts. I told him I would do it all for you, and I know you do it for me too. I can be a fighter if you want. Yeah, I can be a fighter. I can be a fighter if you want. I can be a fighter if you want. All the way that I feel, yeah, I know that it's real, cause I can get him out of my head. I don't care what we do, everything's feeling new. Even if we stay in bed, my heart is saying yeah. You know I want him nah. My heart is saying yeah.